Hi all. These are generally conversations between adults after the children have left the table. The language can be spicy and the subjects can get saucy. So if you're ready, this is the Southern Fork. Unscripted kitchen chats and also studio chats with some of the most interesting voices in the culinary South. I'm Stephanie Burt, a food and beverage writer based in Charleston, South Carolina, who travels with her fork to write for a variety of publications, from magazines you might have on your coffee table to the website you love to visit for your favorite recipes. And I'm inviting you to come behind the scenes with me to get to know the people who make this Southern culinary landscape so special. I'm always hungry for the next bite, thirsty for that next sip, and ready for the next conversation. Let's dig in. The Southern Fork is presented this year by Townsend Automotive in Tuscaloosa, Alabama. The Honda CR-V has been my favorite vehicle in Honda's lineup for years because it has great gas mileage and can haul a vintage furniture find with ease. In fact, it's so easy for getting out there in general, from the beach to the mountains to even the next photo shoot for a Southern travel article. Purchasing a CR-V from Townsend Honda means purchasing from a family-owned company built on service and connection with its customers, and they want to remind you of the joys of a jaunt down the road. Visit townsendhonda.com for current inventory, or if you're in West Alabama, stop in. Townsend Honda salutes local entrepreneurs, from restaurateurs to podcasters, and they welcome you to be part of a community that does the same. When Chubby Fish in Charleston, South Carolina is closed, there are dark blue velvet curtains in the windows that obscure a view inside. However, when 5 p.m. comes, those curtains are opened and Chef James London and his team are ready to serve a lot of hungry diners. They come for all things seafood, a variety of fish and shellfish prepared in a variety of ways, but always with an eye for balance and a respect for the product. The restaurant was named one of Bon Appetit's best new restaurants in America in 2019, and I've also included it in the last 2 years in the best restaurants in Charleston for Conde Nast Traveler. James attended the French Culinary Institute and has cooked in San Francisco and New York, but the waters and the dining culture of the South Carolina Lowcountry keep his creativity fresh and keep me coming back for another Chubby Fish experience. Welcome to the Southern Fork, James London.
Thanks for having me.
It's a beautiful, humid Saturday morning, and I asked you to get up a little earlier to come in after Friday service. Chubby Fish is back open. I'm so excited to sit in the space. It's beautiful. I speak a lot about restaurants being about a nightly performance, and I think you take that to the extreme because at 5 o'clock the curtains part, right?
Totally. It is definitely a theatrical performance, and that's what I tell all the cooks from the get-go. You know, we push all day, all morning, just to get ready for that curtain being pulled at 5 o'clock. And really the spotlights shine up, and everyone is on stage. Everyone is watching the kitchen. From the get-go, I wanted this restaurant to feel like really, like a sushi restaurant in a way, where everyone's eyes are always on the sushi chefs back there doing their thing. And so just the way that the flow is in this restaurant, everyone's always looking at that kitchen and it's a lot of fun when you're back there cooking in it.
Yeah, there's a lot of adrenaline. There's got to be. We'll talk a lot about the food today. I had to start with the environment. It reminds me, and this is a high compliment for me, this place reminds me a lot of Kindred in certain ways. Was there inspiration? Did you have an idea that you wanted it to be this kind of performance thing? Because Kindred is the same kind of neighborhood joint, but hiding in plain sight, fine dining, performance, no reservations, 5 p.m., that kind of thing.
Yeah, I mean, I absolutely love Kindred. I love what they do. I love Hello Sailor as well. This was, I definitely wanted a neighborhood spot. I did not want a spot on King Street. I did not want a big 100-seat restaurant. For me, kind of that 60-seat level is kind of where quality starts to change. And, things can go wrong when you're dealing with an 80-seat restaurant, for instance. Here we have 40 seats. So it's extremely manageable. It's a lot of fun, and we can really dial it in. But, I wanted to be part of the fabric of the neighborhood, and I wanted to be tucked away and hidden away and just kind of off the beaten path.
It's really hard for me to write about it because I don't want to send all the people from Conde Nast Traveler over here, but I can't help it. It's my journalistic duty.
And we appreciate it.
Yeah, but I know a lot of chefs listen to the show, and I know they're going to be really interested in hearing what you have to say. So let's segue immediately into kind of the ideas of how you put things on and sourcing. But one thing that I didn't get to ask Joe and Katie about Kindred, I'd love to ask you. How do you deal with the entire restaurant being seated pretty close to opening? Because reservations protect the kitchen from going down. So when the curtains part and the doors open, especially on the weekends, there's a line that's going to fill up immediately. How do you deal with that? And how do you train your kitchen staff? I know that servers, it's fine. 40 seats, they can do that. And you can deal with front of house. But how do you deal with the kitchen and teaching them how to take something like that?
It's an absolute blast when that happens. And it always happens. It every day right now is Saturday night.
Right. I didn't want to say that, but
it is. It's every day is Saturday.
Prepare yourself. If you're coming to Charleston, you need some reservations. But not at Chubby Fish because they don't take them.
Yeah. Everyone can get in. It doesn't matter who you are. Everyone can get into Chubby Fish on any night. You just have to sit outside and drink a bottle of wine while you wait, and it's a blast. It's a lot of fun. The restaurant always gets sat 40 people at the same time, right at 5 o'clock. We really thrive on that in the kitchen. Like, we love it. And so it's, this guy's got 10 yellowfin tuna crudos, and he's got 7 banded rudderfish crudos, and he has 11 octopus and 8 ceviches and 4 oyster rolls, and it's amazing. And we really, everyone in the kitchen really, really loves it. Everyone has a really amazing time. And if you look back there in the heat of the moment, everyone back there is very cool, calm, and collected. And everyone knows what they're doing. There's no chaos whatsoever. There's no shouting. There's no throwing of pans. Everyone's we're just back there dancing. And it's a lot of fun for us. And like I said earlier, once you get above that 60-seat threshold, that's no longer the case. I feel like 40 seats, absolutely perfect. And we're just back there grooving, and it's a lot of fun.
Now, you grew up in Charleston. Well, you were born in Charleston. You grew up in Clemson. And you cooked in a lot of fancy places. And I think based on the minimal conversations that we have had, you have a passion from the beginning for cooking. Is that true?
Absolutely.
Yeah. So when you were starting out, did you start out with the idea of one day I'm going to be a chef owner of my own restaurant? Did you start out with that plan, or was there a moment when you were cooking in, say, New York, and it was a Thursday night, and one day you were like, this is me, I'm doing this? Can you talk a little bit about that?
When I was young, I played music, and I was a drummer, and when I came down to College of Charleston, that was the mission, was I'm doing music, I'm going to be a drummer, and that was my life goal at the time. Prior to that, though, I had worked in restaurants since I was 14, and I started off washing dishes and then moving on to barbecue restaurants where I would pull pork before school in the mornings, and then head there afterwards and finish up my shift. So it was a way for me to make beer money on the side. It was never something that I took seriously. And then when I got down here to College of Charleston, I would play gigs 3 or 4 nights a week. But then the nights where I wasn't gigging, I was picking up shifts in restaurants. And so I was going through temp agencies, picking up line cooking shifts. And there was a moment where I had a chef at the time who would keep coming over to me and bringing me a taste of bordelaise that he had just made, or a rabbit roulade that he had just made. And I was thinking to myself, like, wow, I really want to learn how to do that. And so he took me aside and basically said, I'll teach you how to do this. So I signed on to work full time. And so I was doing 5 days a week in the kitchen line cooking. And then I would leave at 9:30, 10 o'clock, go jump up on stage and play drums. And so the guys in the kitchen were cleaning up my station, and the guys in the band were setting up my drums and doing sound check. And so it wasn't sustainable.
Right.
And so the chef sat me down and said, are you going to be a chef or are you going to be a drummer? And so I came back the next day and I said, I'm going to be a chef, and I never looked back.
Yeah.
And from then on out, I had my blinders on, and I was determined to open up a restaurant at some point. So
having 40 people sit at the same time is kind of like drumming.
It really is.
It really is.
If you think about the way that our menu works here, where all the items are on magnets and they get pulled down every day and erased and then drawn up with a new menu item and plugged back up onto the menu board, it's very much like playing jazz.
And it's also like a set list.
Totally.
So your food is serious. And I think it doesn't mean that it's not fun. It just means you sit down and it's really serious as far as like all the flavors, all the balance. And I tell people, just get whatever. Get as many dishes as you can. Take other people so that you can eat a lot. It's seafood based. And so way away from a rabbit roulade that's very clean, fine. How did you find your style? Because this is you. I mean, when I sit in Chubby Fish, well, it's you too. I sit in here and I see your personality in the dishes and how you found that voice. Like a musician, chefs have a voice that comes through their food.
So for me, it took a long time to find my voice in the kitchen. Every restaurant that I was put in charge of, I was always pigeonholed into a certain cuisine, a certain style. And so it wasn't until I opened Chubby Fish and had to put the menu up where it was like, all right, this is me. Because, before it was, well, is that Japanese enough? Is that Spanish enough? Is that French enough? Is that Southern enough? why do you have so much seafood on your menu? Why is there so much raw proteins on your menu? Mm-hmm. And so here it was like, now I can just do whatever I want to.
Right.
I don't have to answer to anyone. I don't have to cook in a certain style. And literally I can just do whatever I want. And it was so liberating to be able to just, you know what, let's do this and let's do that. And I didn't have anybody really holding me back at all.
Creatively, we need, as creatives, to have fences to figure out what fits in that space. So how did you learn the fences when you could do anything? Because you have to take the diners on a journey too. And so in a way, you have to teach them what Chubby Fish is.
Correct. And I'm so fortunate that, I mean, the dining public here in Charleston is so advanced compared to so many other places.
It's really true.
It's crazy. I would never be able to sling the number of fish collars that we sling here in San Francisco or in New York. I would never be able to sling cobia liver in
I have not
San
had
Francisco
that
or New York.
Next time.
You know, it's like people here really, really trust us to take them on that journey. And it's just, it amazes me every single night. Mm-hmm. That people really, really, really trust us to do that for them. Mm-hmm. But, you know, I definitely did have to find the fences.
Mm-hmm. Because it's fun when you can do anything.
Right.
But it's also like, you got to get down and do the work. You can't just live in the ideas. So in order to do the work, you have to put some edge on it somewhere.
Correct. And I think just working in restaurants for 25 years, you know, those you learn those boundaries. You learn what you can and can't do. But now we get to kick down those fences a little bit.
Yeah.
And really let loose.
Now, those people that are listening to this, we've been talking pretty esoterically, so I'm just going to continue this vein. But I'm interested in how, if you were doing an elevator pitch, you're at a festival, food festival, and you're in the elevator with somebody, and they go, "Hey, man, what style do you cook? Tell me what your restaurant is. What is your elevator pitch of what Chubby Fish is, or your style?"
So we do doctor table seafood, and
he had this prepared.
I've had to do this elevator pitch in an elevator before. So we do doctor table seafood, and that's pretty much what it is. And basically what that means in a nutshell is our menu changes on a daily basis, totally dependent on what we're receiving in our coolers. Mm-hmm. And so sometimes that's 4 triggerfish and 3 amberjack and 12 pink porgies and 6 black bass and 1 cobia, and we have to create our menu off that. Mm-hmm. And so every day it's going to be something different, and that's kind of just what it is.
That's fun though,
and it's a blast for us, you know, because every day we walk in and it's something new, and we don't know what it is until we walk in. So
to answer those questions or those chef comments from all those years, why do you like working with raw protein so much? Why do you like that seafood texture of, you know, everything from a crudo to a tartare?
So I was raised in Clemson, South Carolina, and we didn't have a sushi restaurant there until I was in 10th grade. There was a sushi pop-up that came in, and it was all-you-can-eat sushi on Mondays. And prior to that, I had never experienced sushi, and this was probably the worst sushi you could ever find.
I don't know. I found some really bad sushi. I cover the South, and it's
Yeah.
hit or miss, man.
Yeah. But for me, when I did have good sushi, it was just amazing in the way that it hits you. It was very cerebral. There's a lot of technique that goes into making a piece of fish perfect. And to be able to showcase it in its raw state, simply just sliced on a plate with a drop of olive oil, takes a lot of restraint. And I really enjoy that, to present something as simply as possible and let it shine on its own. And I really, really love the sourcing of ingredients. I love that aspect of cooking. I like to get the best stuff possible. And so when I can get a perfect fish caught the day before, caught the day of, and do it as simply as possible on the plate, that's about as exciting as it gets for me. I love raw things. Love. My first executive chef position was in New York, and I was 26, and I was helmed with a fine dining Japanese restaurant. And the sushi chef that was brought in was the number 2 sushi chef at Sushi Yasuda at the time. And so I came in knowing virtually nothing about Japanese food aside from burying myself in cookbooks. And just to watch these guys work, watch the discipline that they had in the kitchen, the methodical approach they took to the whole fish coming in and then into the final sashimi slice, was really eye-opening to me at a time in my life, or a time in my career, that was very formative.
Right.
And
it was very vulnerable because you're in your first executive chef position, and then you watch somebody who can burn you down pretty quickly.
Oh, yeah.
So it does keep you humble, but it keeps you open,
Right.
you know, and that is exciting. I would say then, after our chat, that you are really obsessed with technique. And I think that maybe is what caught your imagination, is like how to do these things more than the ingredient, you know, and sourcing is a technique. Doing it well is a technique. And then understanding how to showcase that kind of thing. Hours wise, I know just from living close to abundant seafood and buying more seafood and trying to cook it, my goal was to cook a whole fish at home, learn how to do that during the pandemic, and I have succeeded. It's really hard to break down fish in a way that it's not, for some reason, to break down chicken. Maybe it's just that we, as Americans, don't have as much experience doing it. How do you hire? What do you look for? What is that like spark that you know, okay, this person not only has the technique, but they can handle the drum kit that I've set up here for us?
For me, I think I have a phenomenal staff all the way around. They're all amazing people, but I think that's what's most important, is that they're all good people. And I feel like everything is trainable in the kitchen, but if you start with a good person, just like cooking, if you start with a good product, you know, it's very easy to kind of shape them into what you want them to become. And yeah, so I think I just look for good people, and just that's kind of the sole foundation of our hiring.
Well, and
here.
to me, it comes through in the food. You know, if you're cooking for the joy of it versus you're cooking for a lot of other reasons. Okay, you closed this restaurant down and you did private things for the pandemic, and you made it through, and you amazingly have your staff with you a year later. now that we're through and we're vaccinated and we got to hug, what are you hungry for? We're in a renaissance, right? With restaurants and service. What is making you hungry?
I mean, after we were shut down for 14 months, so for me, just to have the restaurant packed out every single night, like that's what we were looking. I mean, we were just dreaming of having the restaurant packed out for 14 months every day, and so to finally see the other side of this thing is just incredible. And I think here at Chubby Fish, we've gotten kind of as big as we can get in terms of just the sheer volume of people we can do every night. And it's pretty amazing, out of a little 40-seat restaurant, we can pump 150 covers on a nightly basis. And it's absolutely incredible. But I think the entrepreneur in me wants to kind of continue on with what we've accomplished here and do something else in some other iteration. And so I think that's kind of next step. That's what I'm salivating for, is kind of what are we going to jump into next.
What's one aspect of this job, the chef, that really meshes like a puzzle piece with an aspect of your personality?
I think of myself as very calm.
You
and
sound
collected.
very calm.
You sound calm.
This is the NPR Saturday Night Live thing. We're both not super calm, but we're calm when we're talking about our work.
I think I'm calm.
I don't know.
I'm calm. You're calm.
We're calm.
I think of myself as being very calm, and here, when the kitchen here is very calm at all times. Even prep wise during the daytime, when 1,000 things are going on at once, everyone here is very calm. And I think it's also like I have ADD, which you're probably catching on as you're listening to this.
Well, I don't notice
podcast.
because I do too. I'm just like, this is how we live.
Yeah, this is us.
Yeah.
Hey, look, a bird.
Yeah, I'm over there. I'm sitting here looking at the menu, trying not to read it. So I pay it to, I'm like, oh, I want to see what it is tonight,
But, I think that really helps me when it comes to sorting through 1,000 different things going on at once and dealing with 40 tickets that are on the board and all the modifications. And, it helps me kind of like space it all out. And
yeah. It's neurodiversity. It's not better or worse. It's just how your brain works.
Totally.
But also there's hyperfocus and ADHD.
Definitely.
So you can get hyper-focused and then click off things on that list.
Yes.
So, yeah, we rock. It's just how it is.
ADD.
Go us. Next, what keeps you up at night? Just like one thing.
What keeps me up at night? Sourcing. We're not locked into certain purveyors. We don't have the big seafood companies that we can say, all right, we'll take 2 grouper and 25 beeliner snappers. Like, it just doesn't work like that for us. And so we're kind of at the mercy of Mother Nature and of our small fishermen. And so I'm always thinking, man, I wonder if we're going to have any product for Friday.
Right.
Or I wonder if we're going to have any fish on Saturday, or the weather's looking really rough beginning of next week. I wonder if we're going to have any product for Wednesday. And we always do. But that's what keeps me up at night, is that constant little worry of...
Yeah, because you're giving up control when you're giving up a big purveyor.
Yep.
All right. I'm so happy to chat with you. And one of the things that I bring, no matter whether I have to drive 15 minutes to your doorstep or fly across the country, is a magic picnic basket. It's only for Southern Fork guests. And with this magic picnic basket, I can time travel. I can go back and conscript anybody to make anything that you've had in the past that you wish you would have again. I can source for you magically better than you just for a moment. And I can cook a little bit, though I cannot cut fish very well. Just ask Mark Marhefka, and he will, as I staged with him, and he was like, don't do that again, you can scale. So I'd love to bring you some favorite things in your basket. They don't have to go together, just some food that really brings you life. What can I bring you?
My mother's French silk pie.
She'll have to make two because I'll need one as well.
Your picnic basket is going to be full of my mother's food. My mother's baked pork chops over rice, and one of our caviar sandwiches, maybe two of them.
Okay, that sounds really good. What are we drinking in this basket?
Ooh, let's drink a bottle of Pay Vineyards Pinot Noir.
Nice. It goes with all. Very good pick. Yeah.
I went out there and visited them with my parents, and we hung out there for the afternoon on their porch and drank bottles of wine and ate charcuterie. Those are bottles that I hold very dearly.
Mm-hmm. Great. Well, if people want to learn more, maybe have a caviar sandwich, you can go to thesouthernfork.com. I'm going to have links there, as I always do, so you can check out Chubby Fish. The menu definitely changes nightly. But there will also be the face behind the voice. If you like what you hear, I'm fortunate to live in Charleston, so I can just drive over here. I don't do it as often because I am also fortunate to be able to travel the country with this podcast and bring you some of the best voices of the culinary South. The best way to make sure that you hear all of them and plan your next meals is to subscribe. So, thank you so much for letting me come into the restaurant when it's closed and bringing me iced coffee black, which you already knew without me asking would be my favorite. I appreciate it.
You're so welcome. Thanks for having me.
Hello and welcome to Talking with My Mouth Full. I really appreciate you listeners, so thank you so much for listening. I don't feel like I say that enough. It always bears repeating. So I am so happy that you're on the other side of this mic. And some of you have been so kind to interact with me through the years on Facebook or Instagram or send me emails. I really, really appreciate that. As I continue to build content and bring you some of the best voices in the culinary South, I'd love to know if there are people that I should know that fit that criteria. Let me give you an example of this. Recently, I was in Atlanta and I was running around eating and drinking and researching and podcasting, and I had a wonderful interaction with Chef Alexandra of Wild Woman Bakery in Gainesville, Florida. She reached out to me, she DM'd me and told me about another baker that she loved in Atlanta, and I had time and popped on over there and met a great baking and butchery program in Atlanta, a place that I would have missed had it not been for her. So thank you. Thank you. This is your official shout out. But you will also be hearing more about that bakery in the future. So I'd love to know just that sort of thing. If you would like to send me a DM or on Instagram, those are really great. On Facebook, I don't have the Facebook Messenger app. I avoid that. So you can either send me a note right on my Facebook wall, or send me an email at stephanie@thesouthernfork.com. You can also interact with me on Instagram. Y'all know that that's my favorite social media platform. And let me know if there's someone that I should know, that I should consider. You are my listeners out there, and I trust you to have good taste. So I can't promise anything, but I will read every one of your comments, and I do. And I will also read every one of your emails and appreciate any kind of feedback that I can get. So thank you, Wild Woman Bakery in Gainesville, Florida, for doing just that during my recent visit to Atlanta, Georgia. And I look forward to hearing from more of you as I'm out and about running around the South and the culinary South. So sometimes I do leave the South, But anyway, thanks so much for listening, and I look forward to hearing from you. Until next time. You've been listening to The Southern Fork. I can't wait to bring you more culinary conversations, but in the meantime, I have one question. Are you going to eat all that?